All right, let's dive straight into the incredibly visceral, deeply thematic world of Nobility Rising. Picture this, a techno-industrial steam magipunk reality. We just call it TISM for short. It's a world where the remnants of hyper-advanced galactic empires have literally crashed down onto the ocean planet of Talasant. Now, these survivors have formed into pragmatic alliances called chimerical houses, and they're rebuilding civilization entirely upon the high seas. This isn't just some standard naval game, guys. It's an absolute masterclass in interconnected engine building where every single choice you make sends ripples across the water. I mean, just look at that apocalyptic history hanging right there in the sky. That moon, it's not natural. It's the skeletal, rusted-out remains of an ancient war sun. It's this constant, terrifying reminder of a lost sci-fi history. So today, we're going to break down exactly how the stranded descendants of that cataclysm, decked out in 18th century nautical gear, of course, wage this fiercely tactical and economic war on modular oceans to take back their destiny. Okay, here's the game plan for breaking down this naval campaign. We're looking at the four-weight naval grid, tactile combat, the malice exchange, war crimes, and finally, the physical economy. Let's get into it. Act 1. The four-weight grid. Scrapping space docks for island harbors. So everything starts with the fleet itself. In a huge departure from your typical sprawling galactic space games, Nobility Rising swaps out deep space hexes for these granular, modular, diamond-shaped seas. This totally forces you to rethink your map. Suddenly you're sweating over choke points, coastal batteries, and island harbors. And the naval architecture is just brilliant. You've got a strict four-weight grid: sloop, frigate, galleon, and small specialty units. But here's the real kicker. Each weight class has both a military and civilian variant. So if you upgrade a global hull blueprint, it doesn't just make your warships hit harder. It buffs your merchant freighters and diplomatic ships of that exact same weight class at the exact same time. Literally everything is interconnected. Which brings us to a massive guns versus butter dilemma. Those terrifying, heavily armored military warships and frigates, they have exactly 0 holds. 0. They are pure, unadulterated combat machines. They can't carry a single ground troop to invade an island, and they sure can't haul the trade goods paying for your empire. For that, you absolutely have to rely on your completely defenseless civilian freighters and great ships. Basically, your massive armada is only ever as strong as the fragile civilian supply chain keeping it afloat. Moving on to Act 2, tactile combat and the double-blind tactics. So once these chimerical houses, which, by the way, are these amazing fusions of legacy alien factions, once they hit the waters, the fight becomes incredibly psychological. You're not just mashing plastic fleets together and hoping for the best. You are orchestrating a naval engagement. Before a single die is rolled, you step into double-blind combat tactics. It's this super tense rhythm where both the attacker and defender secretly pick a maneuver from a 7-card hand and then reveal them at the exact same time. If you read your opponent right, you can completely nullify their entire strategy during the counterstep. It's essentially high-stakes poker, but with age-of-sail broadsides. You've got 7 distinct tactics to play with, and they are heavily dependent on the actual physical ships you brought to the fight. Line of battle needs your medium frigates to build a defensive wall. Breaking the line, you're going to need your heavy galleons to smash through their defenses. And then every single faction has a unique wild card tactic that just completely breaks the rules, perfectly simulating the total chaos of 2 radically different alien armadas colliding out on the open sea. All right, Act 3, the visceral malice exchange, and rolling the advantage engine. Once maneuvers are locked and the smoke clears from the counterstep, we hit the physical reality of combat. The old, boring, binary hit-or-miss system? Totally gone. Instead, we get the incredibly visceral malice exchange. See, every ship has an offensive profile of positive dice, but also a defensive profile of negative malice dice. So if you attack me, I don't just sit there watching you roll. I physically gather up my fleet's negative challenge dice, those heavy reds, purples, and blacks, and I hand them straight across the table to you. You literally feel the weight of my defenses in your hands before you even roll. This whole exchange culminates in one massive, single, unified roll using the Genesis dice system. You're rolling your positive attack dice and my negative defense dice all together. Mathematically, the failures cancel out your hits and the threats cancel out your advantages. Whatever net advantage symbols survive that math are basically your currency. You spend them to trigger these devastating ship abilities, like firing a warship's long guns or unleashing a frigate's grape shot. It turns every single roll into its own dramatic mini-story. But keep in mind, these abilities don't run on magic. They need a working power grid, which you scavenge from ruined War Sun artifacts out on the islands. If your opponent swoops in and steals your artifact site, your entire civilization gets hit with a crippling brownout. Boom, you instantly lose the ability to spend that hard-earned combat advantage on any of your slotted tech modules. Your brilliant naval tactics won't save you if you lose control of the geopolitical map.
Which brings us to Act 4, the cost of war crimes and the rules of engagement on the high seas.
Let's look at how all this bleeds into the political fallout of waging war on Talisant. We know civilian ships are the lifeblood of both your economy and your invasions, so why not just blow them out of the water? I mean, it's super tempting to just shatter your opponent's supply lines, right? If a civilian great ship is just sitting there unprotected, it looks like a free kill. But Talisant has a government, it has a tribunal, and sinking undefended civilian ships comes with massive, severe political and strategic consequences. Because under the strict rules of engagement, intentionally popping non-combatant vessels triggers the war crime rule. If you wipe out a civilian corvette or freighter, you take a direct influence penalty in the Grand Tribunal of Talent City equal to that ship's civilian value. Sure, you might win the naval skirmish, but you're going to completely bankrupt your political power. And that leaves you totally helpless when it's time to vote on the objectives that actually win you the game. However, there is a brilliant loophole here called the VIP convoy exception. Remember how we said military warships have 0 holds? Well, if you spot a lone civilian freighter, but it happens to be hauling military infantry in its cargo holds for an island assault, legally, that ship is now classified as an armed transport. Suddenly, it is a 100% valid, penalty-free military target. You can send it straight to the bottom of the ocean, troops and all, and the tribunal won't even bat an eye. It completely forces players to be incredibly paranoid about how and when they move their armies. Finally, Act 5, the physical trade economy, logistics, wealth, and treaties. Let's wrap up by looking at the logistical reality of maintaining this massive maritime engine. Everything in Nobility Rising is tactile, and that extends right down to your wallet and your handshakes. The physical economy uses a mechanic called the trade delay. In most games, if we make a trade, the gold just magically teleports into your treasury. Not here. If I hand you trade goods or vote tokens, they are physically delayed. You have to set them aside, and they are completely useless to you until your empire goes through its logistical reset during your next status action. Wealth literally has to traverse the oceans on your civilian ships. But you can actually bypass this delay instantly if you're clever with your board positioning. Mechanics like Corvette diplomacy let you park a civilian Corvette right next to a rival's embassy on an island, which lets you instantly deliver treaties and wealth. By building those adjacent embassies, you transform your fragile civilian ships into these vital, instant diplomatic lifelines. Your economy is just inextricably linked to your physical presence on the map. It really is a perfect Ship of Theseus design metaphor. The creators took a massive, sprawling galactic space game and completely scavenged it. They replaced part after part until they birthed this deeply interconnected physical maritime engine. You need territory to fuel your tech. You need tech to win your combat. You need ships to protect your economy. And you absolutely need that economy to buy the political leverage to shape the game's objectives. Every single system physically drives another. So, as you stare up at that skeletal war sun hanging over the clockwork seas of Talisant, you really have to ask yourself, can you master the tactile grid of naval warfare, navigate those perilous rules of engagement, and manipulate the physical economy to unite the world under your banner? Or is your chimerical house just going to sink into the forgotten depths of history? It's all waiting for you on the high seas.